Okay, so solving equations. So again, this is stuff that you have covered in the past, but we're just going to go over this again. And so in order to solve an equation, we are trying to find the value of the letter that makes the statement true. Okay? So for example, if we have x plus 5 equals 7, we're trying to find which number has to sit in the position of the letter. Okay? Now, let's remember, just remind ourselves that an equation has to have an equal sign. Okay? If we had just x plus 5, that would be called what? What do we call that if we just have x plus 5? How do we describe that kind of thing? This would be an equation. What would this be? Abby?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry?
Maybe like a substitution.
No. This would be an expression. Okay? So this is an expression, this is an equation. Okay? But that vintage in an expression, we would perhaps substitute values in. Okay? So for example, I might say, Sienna, you pick a value for x, she's going to substitute that in, she's going to get an answer. I might say, Eliana, you pick a value for x, she's going to substitute that in, she's going to get a different answer. Okay? What we're saying is that we know the answer to our equation, we know that the answer when we substitute a value in is going to be 7. We need to find out what that value was. Okay? So that's what we're doing when we're solving an equation. Is there anyone that's not sure of what that means still? Okay, so you're all good? So, what must the value be? Something plus 5 equals 7. What is the missing value? Kelsey? 2. Good. So we can put that in. So the missing value must be a 2. Because 2 plus 5 equals 7. Now, that's pretty easy, yes? We just need to look at that and go, well, that's super obvious. But it's not always going to be that straightforward. When we are solving, your final statement is always going to be your letter equals something. Okay? It's not going to be 2x equals, or 5t equals, or 0.2t equals. It's not going to be any of those. Okay? It's just going to be your letter equals the value. So as I said here, some maybe it's more simple. This one, more complicated. It's not so obvious what value you have to multiply by 3 and add 4 to give us the same value as 19 subtract 2 lots of that number. Okay? But we're going to be able to work out what that kind of thing would be. So we're going to go through this more, hopefully straightforward example to make sure we understand the steps of working. So I've said here, we need to move everything on the same side as the letter. To the opposite side of the equal sign. So in other words, I've got a 5 lots of t plus a 6, and on the other side I've got a 31. So I need to get rid of everything else from this side, and what that means is that it's going to end up moving over here. Okay?
Oh, I was going to say that.
Alright, I'm just going to go through the steps just to make sure everyone's comfortable with it. Now, when we're solving equations, we work through BEDMAS backwards. Okay, so we have to remember that on this left-hand side, what would be the weakest bond going on here? What would it be? Would it be the 5 lots of, or would it be the add 6? Which is the weakest thing? Which is the thing that we would undo first of all? I can't believe there's only 4 people that are thinking something. Hannah?
Add 6.
Good. That's the weakest thing that we're going to have here. Does everyone understand what I mean by the weakest thing?
No.
Okay, so if I have BEDMAS, that's the order we would do stuff. Are there any brackets here?
No.
Are there any exponents or powers?
No.
Are there any division or multiplication?
Yes.
Okay, so that means that they are more important than the addition and subtraction. So this one is more important than this. That means this is a weaker bond. In other words, we're going to deal with these additions and subtractions before we would deal with multiplications or divisions. Alright, so the rule is, if something has been multiplied, we're going to, in order to undo it, we're going to do what to it? We're going to divide it. If something had been divided, what do we do to get rid of it or undo it? We multiply. If something had been subtracted, what do we do? And if something had been added, we subtract. As I said here, we work in the reverse order of fairness. Okay? So, back to this example. We said that the weakest thing is to add 6, so we are going to do the opposite thing. So we are going to subtract 6. Are we allowed to just subtract 6 without doing anything else?
No.
No, we must do it the other side as well. So we're going to subtract 6 from here. Now, if writing in colours helps you, then great. If you've been setting yours out in a slightly different way, that's fine. But this is the way I'm setting it out. Now, so I've shown I've subtracted 6 from both sides. I'm then going to follow through. So my 5t is still there. My positive 6 here and my negative 6, what's happened to that? It's gone, yes? I've still got my equals here. And I can now actually work out the value of 31 take away 6. What's 31 subtract 6?
25.
25. Okay, so my 5t was already there. My plus 6 got cancelled out with my minus 6. So that disappeared. And I actually worked out the value of 31 take away 6. I've now got just one thing going on. I've got multiplying going on. So what's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So often in algebra we show that with the division line like this. Remember, we're going to do the same thing to both sides. We cross out our 5s because they are the same top and bottom. So that leaves us with just a t here. And we're going to work out what 25 divided by 5 is. 5. Sorry, do you have a question?
Oh no, I wanted to ask you.
Great. Are we good with that? Yes?
Yes, I just want to
Hurry up, please. Have you written the example down? Have you copied
Oh
it
yes,
down?
yes.
All right. Moving to the next one. Now, I'm going to go a little bit faster on this one. I'm hoping that you're thinking, yeah, I get this. We've done this before. Why is she going so slowly? Right. So we're going to look at this. What's the weakest thing? We're going to be adding 5 to both sides. Remember, the sign is important. That means that has got rid of that on the left-hand side. I have 3p equals 18. As I said, the setting out is really important, so I need to see certain steps. So here I'm going to divide by 3. I've cancelled my 3's, so I'm left with p is equal to 6. Now you'll notice, as I say, the setting out is important. I'm setting it out in a column format, so I'm following from one line to the next underneath each other. I'm not just working in the same line. Okay, so if you keep working in the same line, it all can go horribly wrong. So you've got to be really careful where you're writing your numbers and your letters. Okay, the next one here, p minus 5 divided by 3. Now, this division line goes underneath everything on the top. Now that means that it's a secret bracket around here. So we haven't drawn the bracket, but we've got that bracket there. So even though we have a subtraction, which we've said is weaker than the division, we're actually going to deal with our division first of all. Okay? Now, this is a very common error that people make. They see us take away 5 and they start adding 5 with the 3 still here. Are you all comfortable that this, because the line goes underneath everything, implies that there's a kind of bracket there? Okay? So we have to deal with our 3 first of all. So we are dividing by 3 on this side. What did we say we have to do to get rid of a divide by 3? What's the opposite of divide? So we're going to multiply by 3. So that means both sides are multiplied by 3. My 3's then cancel out, and I'm left with p subtract 5. And that is 12. 4 multiplied by 3. We then just have one thing going on. We just have the subtract 5. Obviously, we haven't needed to write our brackets. If you did, it's not wrong. But at this point here, we wouldn't need them anymore. And we're just going to add 5. So P is 17. Now, this is something that when you're in a test or an exam situation, you should be able to leave that test knowing whether you have got stuff right or wrong if you've been asked to solve an equation, okay? How can you do that? How can you check your work if you've been asked to solve an equation?
Can you substitute P?
Good. So we have said that P is 17, okay? If we're right, when we substitute that into the original left-hand side, obviously just the left-hand side, we should end up with an answer of 4. So 17 subtract 5. What's that? 17 subtract 5. 12. What's 12 divided by 3? 4. So because it does equal 4, we know that we are correct. Okay? So you should come out feeling comfortable and happy that you've got it right. Now, if you substitute it in and it's not right, don't just go, oh well, let's move on. Go back and have a look to see what you might have done wrong. Perhaps you added 5 to both sides before you did your dealt with the 3. Okay? So have a look. See if hopefully you'll have time to do that in the test. Right, in some cases we have brackets that we need to deal with. You've got choices here. You can expand your bracket first. You don't have to, okay? But I would suggest probably it's easier to expand your bracket first because we need to ideally not have a bracket there. So, expanding my bracket, remember that means we're multiplying everything inside the bracket by whatever is at the front. Okay, so we have a 4 at the front, we've got a 2x inside. Amy, what's 4 lots of 2x?
8.
Lovely, thank you. And Imani, what would I have next?
4 times 3.
Good, 4 multiplied by 3, which is?
4.
Good, is that positive or negative? Am I going to write plus 12 or minus 12? Good, because both of these two things are positive. Okay, so all I've done first of all is expand my brackets. Bless you. Now we're going to deal with any of our numbers that we can deal with. What's the weakest thing, Indigo? What am I going to move first?
Everything.
Good, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. So I have 8x, that's gone, and that's equal to 24. And then our final step, Hannah S.
You divide 8 by 8,
Good.
And then you divide 24, and it would be x equals 3.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay, here I've said on some occasions we need to expand and simplify the expression before we can solve it. Okay, so here we've got a bracket, but we've got this minus 4x attached to it. Okay, so we need to make sure we're grouping our letters together before we solve it. You have not? Yes.
Oh,
Sure.
so it would be 3 times 2x first, which would be 6x.
Lovely.
And 3 times 3 is 9, so it's plus 9.
Awesome. Okay, so our first step was just expanding that bracket. We now need to join our like terms. So I can see that the 6x and the minus 4x, they're on the same side of the equal sign. Okay? So don't start thinking that you're trying to move something from one side to the other. You're literally just joining these two terms together. Remember, the sign in front of it is really important. So I read this as 6x subtract 4x, which there it is.
2x.
Okay, so we've got 2x plus 9 equals 25. And now this looks like one of those other ones we had. Okay, so we're now going to deal with the bonds, the weaker bonds, and get rid of those terms first. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. That 9 has disappeared. So 25 subtract 9, 16. Divide both sides by 2. And we get x equals 8. Okay? Over?
No.
Alright, if the letter you're solving has a negative or minus sign in front of it, you should try and change it to be positive before you start to solve it. Now, this is the way that I'm suggesting that you do these. Okay? It's not the only way of doing it, but it's something that I have found is a little bit easier, because sometimes people just lose a negative. Okay, so my suggestion here, do you understand, or can you notice that we are trying to solve this, so we're trying to find the value of x. This term here has a subtraction sign in front of it. So these are the kinds of questions I'm talking about. Okay, so my suggestion to you is to say, okay, right, I don't like it like this, so I'm just going to change everything to be the opposite sign. So I would change this to be negative 7 plus 3x equals negative 1. Now, you are allowed to do that because we have changed everything to the opposite. You are not allowed to just change one thing. So we can't just change the question to be 7 plus 3x equals 1, because that's just changed everything. But we are allowed to do what we've just done. Now, the reason I do that is because now my x is positive, and I'm less likely to make a mistake. Well, I hope. So now we go back to saying, right, well, what do? We need to get rid of something on the left-hand side. The weakest thing here is my negative 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. My negative 7 and my 7 disappear. I'm left with 3x. Remember, I don't have to write positive 3x. I can just write 3x. This is where we've got to be careful with our negative values. So we've got negative 1, and we're adding on 7. Where does that end up, Emily? 6. Good go. And our final step is to divide by 3, which gives us x equals 2. Now, you can choose to write this down if you wish, or you can choose just to listen, or you can just focus on what we've just written. But I'm just going to go through it if for some reason you didn't do this first step. So we're going to work with it as 7 minus 3x equals 1. Okay? So I look at this and think I have to get rid of my 7 first of all. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So I've got that's gone. Great. But here I've got negative 3x. Okay, because that negative belongs to the 3, it's staying there. I've then got that equal to, what's 1 subtract 7? Good, negative 6. So I've now got negative 3x equals negative 6. Remember, when we are undoing the multiplying, we're dividing by whatever is in front of it. The value in front of my x is a negative 3. So we're dividing both sides by negative 3. So my negative 3's cancel. I'm just left with x. And here we have to remember that we've got 6 divided by 3, and they are both negative values. So when we have a negative value divided by a negative value, what's our answer? Positive. So it's going to be positive 2. So as you can see, you get the same answer. Okay? At exactly the same answer. It's just that this one here, in my mind, you have to deal with a few more negatives, and that's what can cause issues sometimes. If you prefer this red side, please go ahead and do that. Okay? If you are the kind of person that thinks, oh yeah, sometimes I do mess up, Okay, then maybe you want to try this one just for a few goes and see if you like this side. Okay, so that's just an option for you. So when the value you're trying to find, or the letter you're trying to find is a negative, has a negative prospect, maybe try these as options. Okay, sometimes we have x's on both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so if we have x's on both sides of the equal sign, then we need to make sure they are grouped together on the same side. Okay, so they have to be grouped together on the same side. It doesn't matter which side of the equal sign that you have your numbers and your letters. Okay, so your numbers can be on the left, your letters can be on the right, or vice versa. Most of the time we go for the letters on the left and the numbers on the right, but it doesn't matter. 2 is equal to 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Exactly the same thing. Yes, doesn't matter which side things are on. Okay, so what we often do is we say, right, I've got a 7x here, and what have I got on this side? No one can see.
Oh.
No one has eyes. Amber? Be careful. I don't have 4x. I have a negative 4x. Okay? So I can, hopefully, we can see that we've got more x's on this side. Yes? So I'm going to keep my letters on the left here. How am I going to undo this take away 4x? Amelie, how am I going to undo taking away 4x? What's the opposite to taking away 4x?
You add 4x?
So I'm going to do that to both sides. Okay, I've written this plus 4x nearer the 7x because I know I'm going to group them together. So I've got 7x plus 4x gives me 11x. Now
the other ones cancel.
Yeah, but that's it. Let's figure out. I've still got my negative 14. I've still got my equals, and I've still got my 19. These ones have cancelled each other out. Okay, so they've gone. That was the whole reason for adding on 4x. So far, so good? Now this looks just like the ones that we did before. Okay, so what's the first thing we need to get rid of now?
The negative 14.
Good, so we're going to add 14 to both sides. This has disappeared. So we've got 11x is equal to 33. And now we're going to divide both sides by 11. So x is 3. Okay. Sometimes we have brackets on both sides. Okay, so as the question before with our brackets, we had to get rid of them. What's the process called to get rid of brackets? Expanding, good. So we're going to have 15x plus 25 is equal to 14x subtract 8. Which side do I have more x's on? The left or the right? Eliana? Yep, I have more on the left, so that means I'm going to try and get rid of these ones and join them to it. Yes, you're happy with that? So I'm going to have subtract 14x, subtract 14x. So my 15x subtract 14x gives me just x. Good. I still have my plus 25. These have gone. That's equal to negative 8. Good. Remember that that sign is important. I can't stress that enough. Now this one, we only actually have to do one more thing because I have x on its own already. I'm just going to subtract 25 from both sides. So that's gone. I have x is equal to, I've got negative 8 and I'm taking away 25. What's negative 8 taken away 25? 17.
Negative 33.
Okay, so be careful here, Vintal. We've got negative 8 and we are just subtracting 25 from it. Okay, we're not taking away negative 25. Yeah? So, but that's what lots of people do. So it's kind of good that you said that. So we've got negative, what did we say?
33.
30. But Vintage, hopefully you would have gone, I had time and chucked that back in and checked it, and you would have feel satisfied. Okay? We're all feeling comfortable with this because it's stuff we've done before, yes?
Just a question. Sometimes I get confused which thing you have to take away. So how do you know
I'm sorry, what do you mean which thing to take away?
which number to take away from each side?
So you missed the very beginning, and what we do is we do things in the opposite order of bits. Okay? So any addition and subtraction, because that's the end of med maths. These things here, that's what we want to try and get rid of first. Then we'll deal with any divisions and multiplications. And our last things would be exponents and brackets.
Okay.
I'm going to leave this just for now. And we're going to have some practice of